Hello everyone. As we know that PIPO is going to be sunset on 2027 and it needs to be replaced by its natural successor, which is CPI, or rather Integration Suite. Many customers have already started this journey, or they are in the process of starting the journey of this migration. SAP in this regard has brought in a lot of very useful tools and very important tools, without which this migration may not be possible also. So it could be the assessment tool, which is a migration assessment tool, with the help of which we can assess the landscape of the PO system. This can also be enriched by RNE's assessment as well, which gives a little more deeper insight into the system. This is there by SAP, and also they have provided the migration tooling itself, which does the conversion from ICO to iFlow. So the agenda of today's presentation is that in RNE we have developed a tool which focuses only on the testing of the iFlows as compared to the ICOs. Testing is going to be one of the most crucial aspects which will define or determine the success of the migration project. Because without thorough testing, without thorough validation, complete coverage of all the unit test scenarios for every migrated interface, it is very difficult to go live, because obviously we cannot afford to have bugs in the production. So that is the agenda of this particular presentation. We will showcase a testing tool which is focused only on the testing of competitive testing of the iFlows against the ICOs. So here we have a sample scenario. We have a simple PO scenario which does a SOAP to REST conversion, and there is also a mapping in between. So when we migrate it, we can migrate it into a couple of options. The first option is we can migrate it as a single iFlow, or we can migrate it as a decouple scenario. If we choose a decouple scenario, then the ICOs will be broken into multiple parts. One could be, and that is what has been done here, it breaks it into two iFlows. One is the SOAP to JMS and the other is the JMS to the REST. Now, testing these kind of interfaces also is a little bit complicated, because the logic could be in a part of the logic could be here and the part of the logic could be here. So how do we cross test the logic distributed across several iFlows and compare it against one ICO? So that is again one layer of complexity. Now let us go to the PO system and have a look at the particular ICO. So we have a very simple interface here. So this is the particular interface that we have. It will take the IDOC, matmass IDOC, as a SOAP, and it has just one receiver as of now. It doesn't have any receiver determination. There is a very simple mapping which converts the SOAP into a REST format, and in the outbound processing we are just sending it via the REST adapter. And for the sake of testing, we have configured the webhook tester site here to receive the messages. So this is how the webhook tester site looks like. Let me delete this message and make it clean. And we are using SOAP UI to send the IDOCs. So this is the matmass IDOC which is being sent. So this is the input payload and we are sending it. So we can go and see in the webhook tester site that a new message has arrived. And to confirm this, we can also go and see in the message monitor. And now there are 8 transactions. We can just refresh it, and there is one new transaction which has come. So all is good. So now we are ready to migrate this interface into the CPI. So we have already done the migration basically. So this is the package, and these are the two interfaces which has been migrated. So since we have used decoupled approach, 2 iFlows are generated. One is the SOAP to JMS, which is a pass-through interface. Just we are placing the payload in the JMS queue, and the other one actually has the mapping, which reads from the JMS queue and it does the posting in the webhook tester site. So this is the mapping here. All right, and we can also see that both the interfaces are now up and running. So now we are ready to validate these 2 interfaces. So this is the test tool that we have. This is the landing page, And basically the idea of this tool is to give the developer the maximum flexibility to test as much as possible, as rigorously as possible, the iFlow without logging into the PO environment. So first we can give a meaningful scenario title, like some interface ID, like it could be SOAP to REST matmas replication, because we are replicating matmas. And we can go to the next step, and here we can see the different ICOs which is coming from the PO. There are 168 ICOs in the system, so we can just choose the one which we want to test. So this is the one which we want to test. Okay, so now as we can see that in the bottom screen also, as we keep on moving through this wizard, the bottom screen will keep on populating with more and more details, so that the developer will be able to know what is the testing going on. So the next screen, the messages will be selected. So here what is happening is that this tool is trying to read all the messages for that particular ICO from the message monitor. Now these are the particular transactions. Each transaction is a message transaction in the ICO. And but it is very much possible that there are certain ICOs which are hardly being used or tested, and for them we will not find any logs. So for those kind of low used ICOs, we have this polling feature. So using this polling feature, what we can do is that the developer can simply, talk with the functional consultant, maybe give him a chat that please trigger this IDOC, I want to test this interface. The IDOC will be triggered by the functional consultant, and the developer can start the polling process. So as that particular transaction completes and appears in the message monitor, it will also appear here. So the developer does not need to log in into PO system, check for the new message to arrive. He or she can easily communicate that to this functional counterpart and get it done. So each transaction of that ICO can represent a scenario. So maybe this is a positive scenario, this is a negative scenario. So we can test multiple scenarios for that one ICO in parallel. So let's say I want to test these two scenarios, and I can go to the next step, and here I have to select the iFlow name. So basically the iFlow name is actually obviously it is a decoupled one. So it is the first one, which is SOAP to JMS, and the other one is JMS to proxy. So this is again one of the features of the tool. So imagine you have migrated a asynchronous scenario as a pipeline. So as we know, in pipeline there are a lot of iFlows which will be involved, and each of the iFlow has some logic implemented in it. So how do we do the comparative testing of multiple iFlows vis-a-vis one ICO? So it can happen with an iFlow which is not pipelined as well. The logic will be distributed, little bit in iFlow 1, little bit in iFlow 2. So that increases the level of complexity. So in using this tool, we can test multiple iFlows against one ICO. Also test multiple scenarios of that ICO parallelly. So here we have chosen multiple iFlow names, and we can go to the next. And here the entire iFlow will load here itself. So the developer doesn't need to log in into CPI to see how the iFlow looks like. He or she can just check which iFlow they want to see. So here, this is the first iFlow, which is the JMS to proxy, and the other one is SOAP to JMS, which is the pass-through one. So now the developer has to decide, okay, what do I want to compare? So in this point, what the developer is supposed to do is that he or she needs to choose a step ID. So when we choose this step ID, it means that whatever is the status of the payload at this point in CPI, that will be compared against the payload in the message monitoring ICO. So we can choose any step here. We can choose message mapping step. We can choose a content modifier step. We can choose XML to CSV, CSV to XML step, whatever. So that flexibility is there. Once the step has been chosen, we can start the run test. So now, since we have multiple iflows in the picture, we have to instruct the system to identify the trigger iflow. Which iflow has the public endpoint? So obviously the SOAP2JMS has the public endpoint. So now the actual comparison is happening. So a lot of things are happening in the backend now. The iflows are actually getting executed with the payloads, and the logs are being captured and they are being compared by the tool. So this process may take a few some time, depending on the complexity of the iflow itself. So if the iflow takes, let's say, several seconds to run, so this tool will also have to wait for that much time. So as and when results will be appearing, they will start appearing here. So we have the result for the first transaction already available, and the status is already green, and we are waiting for the second transactions as well. So let's wait for some time. Yes, so now we have got the result of both the transactions. So here we can see which message key we have tested. So here we have a couple of options. First option is the compare, the obvious option. So here the payload that appears at the ICO will be compared against the comparison point that we have chosen in the previous step. Now everything has matched, so it is all green. Now here we have the flexibility of changing the comparison point in PO side as well. So by default, it will try to compare the after mapping step. But let's say you have an ASMA module, you want to compare that. So you could have also chosen that. For example, I want to choose MS step and do a comparison. It won't match. So everything will be green, everything will be red in that situation. And I will again go back to the aim and make it green. So, but there is one point here which is very important, that okay, here in this situation everything has matched, but in certain cases some fields will not match. For example, timestamps will not match. The timestamp could be an older timestamp in PO. So for that we have this ignore flags. So if a field you feel is okay to not be matched, they won't be matched, we can actually click this field to indicate that we can ignore that particular line. So the same thing is true for the other transaction as well. The same thing happens. And we have an overview screen here where we can see that, okay, which message key was compared against which NPL ID and what was the comparison point of the PO, and have we deliberately decided to ignore any field or not. That will all appear here. So the final thing is that we can actually get a screen print out of it. So here we have the header details, like what is the title of the testing, who has tested, what is the result of the testing. In the left hand side we have the PO details, and in the right hand side we have the CPI details. And finally here again, whatever we have chose to ignore, that will appear here. So this becomes like a kind of an audit log as well. So if the developer decides to match two payloads, even then they are not matching due to certain fields, that those fields will be listed here, so that the persons or everybody is aware that okay, these fields are ignored, and then the matching was done. So we can choose to take a print of it. So when the print comes, it will be appearing as a PDF here, and whatever is presented in that screen will appear here. So we are going to integrate with Jira or with other project management tools, so that this particular PDF can be directly uploaded in the Jira task or in some other place. So those kind of integrations are also coming in the next versions, and that is what this tool does. You can always go back and change the comparison point and run the test again. So this becomes a very back and forth kind of tool, gives a lot of flexibility. You can even go back and change the messages as well. So first time we have decided to compare these two messages, maybe this time I want to compare these four messages. That is also possible. Or I can even go to the beginning of the screen and decide to start the scenario once again. Even that is possible. So this tool becomes a very flexible, handy tool for the developer. Doesn't need to log it into the PO environment. It will save a lot of time, because if you have to replicate this entire process manually, it is going to take a considerable amount of time per scenario, per ICO. So that is what this tool does. Hopefully we are able to deliver the reason why this tool is so important for migration projects, and in the subsequent version a lot of more features, added features will appear. So please stay tuned, and thank you for joining this presentation. Have a nice day.